Thank you for joining us here on the NPTE Final Frontier Podcast. My name is David.
And my name is Emily. Today, we will be discussing the temporomandibular joint. Now, the temporomandibular joint, also commonly referred to as the TMJ, which is much easier to say, is formed by the mandibular condyle, which is the convex surface, which is articulating with the temporomandibular disc and the glenoid fossa of the temporal bone. Now let's dive into some of the muscles, actions, and normal range of motions of the TMJ.
The lateral pterygoid is for opening the mouth, which is depressing the mandible. This action of opening the mouth has a normal range of motion of 35 to 55 millimeters. The muscle responsible for closing the mouth, which is elevating the mandible, including the temporalis, masseter, and the medial pterygoid. Those are the muscles that are going to be involved with that. The lateral pterygoid and the medial pterygoid work for protrusion of the mandible. The protrusion of the mandible has a normal range of motion of 7 millimeters. The temporalis muscle, talking about the posterior fibers right now, is for retraction of the mandible. Retraction of the mandible has a normal range of motion of 3 to 4 millimeters. The lateral pterygoid, the contralateral muscle, and the medial pterygoid, the contralateral muscle, are responsible for lateral deviation of the mandible. Now, normal range of motion of lateral deviation of the mandible is 10 to 15 millimeters.
All right, so now let's dive into joint mobilizations, which are extremely important to be able to utilize as therapists to help guide treatment, and they also play a pretty big role on restrictions of the TMJ. Now, when we're speaking of elevation or closing, the arthrokinematics include an anterior roll with a posterior slide. Now, for this mobilization, to increase elevation or closing, we would be performing a posterior glide. Now, when speaking of depression or opening, the arthrokinematics included during the early phase are a posterior roll with an anterior slide, while during the later phase, you'll have the condyle and disc sliding together in a forward and inferior direction. Now, when we're performing a mobilization or a glide to increase depression or opening, we'll now be performing an anterior glide. Now, when discussing arthrokinematics of protrusion and retrusion, protrusion has the mandibular condyle and disc translating anteriorly, while the retrusion has the mandibular condyle and disc translating posteriorly. For lateral excursion, the arthrokinematics is easiest to understand with an example. So let's think about left lateral excursion. We will have the left condyle forming a pivot point, while the right condyle will be rotating anteriorly and medially. Okay, so that is a lot of words, and there are a lot of working parts within such a small joint like the TMJ. So if all of these arthrokinematics and proper joint mobilizations sound a little overwhelming, that's okay. Now is a great time to pause the recording and go back and listen to my beautiful voice again. Or now is a great time to go back to reviewing some of those notes to really dive into treatment to know how we can best perform mobilizations to impact these restricted joints to help improve mobility of the TMJ.
I totally agree with Emily. And now let's go into some of the TMJ conditions. So we're going to discuss right now the TMJ conditions, including the disc displacement with reduction and without reduction. I know that is a common question for many students. So disc displacement with reduction is when a pop or click is heard on opening and closing. Palpation over the lateral poles reveal an opening click, which is also the reduction of the disc, and a closing click, which is the disc displacing anterior to the condyle. These noises equal the reciprocal click. This displacement without reduction, right now we're switching over, so disc displacement without reduction is when the patient reports intermittent locking without joint noises. So once again, locking without joint noises. Opening the mandible is limited to 20 to 25 millimeters with defection towards the involved side. Limited lateral excursion will be noted towards the opposite side of the involved joint. So once again, this is a lot to take in with both of these, the displacement without reduction and with reduction. So this is also another one that you definitely want to review again.
Now, finally, I'm going to review deviations that can occur with opening the mouth or the mandible. Now, if a deviation takes place to the left on opening, this is referred to as a C-type curve. Again, if deviation takes place when opening the mouth to the left, this is referred to as a C-typed curve. Now, if the deviation occurs to the right on opening, this is a reverse C-type curved. Now, a C-type curve, or this type of deviation, occurs due to hypomobility towards that side of deviation. Again, the side that is hypomobile will lead to a deviation towards that side. This is caused by a displacement disc without reduction. Again, this is caused by a disc displacement without reduction or a unilateral muscle hypomobility. So, all in all, the TMJ is such a small joint that is packed with a whole lot of information. So, like David and I both stressed, it is definitely beneficial to go back and review some of these disc displacements that can occur, to review your arthrokinematics, and also just the general anatomy to best help guide your treatment as a clinician. And most importantly, to get to that point of a clinician to help you succeed and pass that exam.
Yeah, this episode can definitely be a mouthful. Huh? See what I did there?
Oh boy, David.
Aye, on to the quote. Now that you understand the TMJ joint, here is a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. You are all trailblazers. Go get your dreams and your goals. If your path may not be where you think that you are supposed to be, trust us. You're supposed to be there. That is your path. And you are exactly where you are supposed to be. You are doing what you are meant to be doing. And you are going to achieve your dreams because you are powerful. You are strong. You are a final frontier warrior. You will pass.
Thank you very much for listening. For more information on the NPTE Final Frontier, please visit npteff.com. You can also check out all of our social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
Till next time, have a great day and a powerful tomorrow. Thank you once again.